My name is Leo Connors, and welcome to The Ring and All Other Sports. Tonight I got a very special guest for his third time? Third time, Tony Ciruolo. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, Leo.
Thank you. We'll get into everything, but let's just get into some fan questions first.
All right.
Dustin Healy says, ask him if he will ever emotionally recover after being defeated by Joey Warner.
You know, that is a fair question. Being at the Peabody Black Box Theater in front of a sold-out crowd and just being able to listen to how much they loved him and knowing that I was climbing that unscalable mountain. But really, it was one of the coolest things ever to be in the ring in the main event with someone who I basically grew up with in the ring. And remembering him as a young kid who we'd go pick up. And Leo, we used to make this 2-hour drive all the way to New Bedford to wrestle in this like crappy warehouse building. You've been to New Bedford.
Yeah.
Mav likes to say that Fall River is the only place he's ever had his car broken into. But dude, we used to drive down to Butthole, New Bedford to wrestle. We're still driving down to Butthole, New Bedford to wrestle. But it was so much fun to be in that main event spot and hear the crowd come in for him and know that we had put all the work to get those butts in the building. You know, it was just such a cool experience. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Adam Nessel has quite a few. Is there anything left that you want to accomplish?
You know, honestly, I think that I might have accomplished everything in wrestling that I set out to do.
Nice.
You know, and this is I mean, if I was a little bit bigger, if I was a little bit stronger, or if I was a little bit more dedicated to sending my tapes into the people that needed to see them, maybe there's something for me that I could have done. But honestly, I think being on this level and just getting to go from someone who was a fan of independent wrestling to being a part of independent wrestling and seeing it from both sides and just having that unique perspective is so cool. It's so cool, Leo, because if you really just stop and think about it, now we're going to get into a more serious conversation later on in the interview, but if you stop and think about it, I was telling someone this just yesterday, where I have met the smartest college graduates because of pro wrestling, and I have been in the same company as ex-cons when it comes to pro wrestling. And how many other places, like with a lot of things in society disappearing, like social clubs, you know, things like that, where do you go for your sense of community? And I think that's the thing. Wrestling is somewhere you go to have a sense of community, not with just people who are fans, but with people who want to get into it. You know, and think about the high barriers there are for things like professional sports or professional acting. But like with wrestling, you can get a group of guys together, find a ring, and just have a blast, you know?
Nice. Actually, great question there, Adam. He has some more. When the name Tony Spencer is mentioned, what do you hope people remember you by?
I hope they don't. I hope they don't remember me. I hope they remember the outlandish things that I did to get the other guy over. I hope they remember that they didn't know what to expect when I came out. But most importantly, I want them to come to that point where they're like, oh, what was that guy? Remember he had the big nose and his boots looked like they had been spray painted 47 times. What was his name? You know, he said the thing about the thing. I don't want them to ever remember my name.
Nice. All right. That's a very unique answer. All right. What is your favorite memory of Front Row Wrestling?
My favorite memory of Front Row Wrestling would have to be, there was this match, and this is a memory that has nothing to do with me, believe it or not. There was a match between Tarzan Taylor and Dan Thunder. And I don't know if you remember Dan Thunder.
I don't, but I remember Tarzan.
Dan Thunder, if you think that I am unskilled when it comes to the in-ring stuff, Dan Thunder was like, full stop. What is this guy doing in here? I mean, I had a little bit of charisma to work with, but Dan had nothing. But I saw Dan wanted to do it. Dan showed up just like I did. Out of Mav's like original class there of 6 people, it was Guthrie, Adam and Dan and Derek Simonetti, Todd Graham, Adam Nessel, who's asking the question, and myself, Dan and I were the only ones who made it all the way through.
Wow!
No, don't do that. That just meant we kept showing up and like Dave Barrett and Sonny Goodspeed beat on us, you know? Oh. But Tarzan, who was going by Matt Spectro this one night, dragged this masterpiece out of Dan Thunder. Yeah, they even did a spot where Dan grabbed a big leather jacket and sunglasses and hid from Tarzan in the crowd and told everyone, "Shh, don't tell him I'm right
and
here."
It worked.
And it worked. And it was amazing. And it's got to be one of my favorite front row wrestling memories.
No doubt.
Right up there with Dr. Heresy keeping everybody in their seats when we did a tribute show for Mad Dog Mulligan. He had come over, he had broken his ankle.
Right.
So we were up at the Zotto Gymnasium in Claremont, and the building lost power. Mav had to go to the Walmart to grab a generator so we could throw the power back on and have the show.
Wow.
Doc kept everyone in their seats for an hour as we waited to turn the lights back on.
Now that's talent. That really is talent.
It really is.
You know?
Yeah.
Doc is awesome. All right, Dustin Healy's back. What is your proudest achievement in your pro wrestling career?
Wow. I really should have screened these questions so I could have had better answers.
Nah, better right up top of your head, honestly. I know it's hard.
That I did it.
Yeah.
I think that I did it. The fact that, there was a time in my life where I didn't really... I've always struggled to have my own voice. I'm the oldest of 4 kids.
Yeah.
So, there's always been this idea of, take care of somebody else first and then take care of yourself. So I think that, when I was younger, I was just always looking out for somebody else and kind of just following what needed to be done.
Right.
And wrestling is that thing. It was that first thing, Leo, that I fell in love with, and I chased after it, and I wanted to do it. So the fact that I've even come this far in it, that's really been, it's really the whole thing put together.
Right.
Like I said, you meet so many incredible people.
Yep.
And, I recently got this chance, by recently, I don't do time well, but I'm talking about a year ago.
Yep.
I went on a road trip with Bob Evans to Columbus and Indiana.
Yep.
And that was just an eye-opener to the fact that there's a lot of guys out there who are doing this on the same level that we are.
Right.
And I think out here we might be doing it a little bit better.
Nice.
So, but it was just fun to get to see all these people and to know all these people. And honestly, like I said, struggling to find my own voice, really authentically express myself, and just being able to authentically express myself using wrestling as that vehicle for a sense of community and belonging, and just have guys to joke around with. Yep.
Absolutely.
Just to know that there's that option right after we pack up the ring after the show. Hey, who wants to go to dinner? Who wants to go to Applebee's? Hey, I'm going to the store. I'll grab the Gatorades for everyone. Yep. Just that kind of mentality. But just doing it, I'd say, is really the accomplishment.
Excellent. All right, he's back with a few more. What ridiculous outfit will you wear next?
I got to say, I've put a little bit of the kibosh on the ridiculous outfits, but I do love them. I recently, in my match with Joey Warner, I wore my strawberry singlet. And I was actually inspired by Pimp Daddy Apple Cinnamon.
Wow!
Because I saw that there was this huge, the apple cinnamon thing was really catching on. I'm like, and what's more relevant to people than food? Like, everybody needs a food gimmick.
Yeah.
Right? And in the summer during the pandemic, there was this dress that went viral online. Right. It was this pink pinstripe dress with strawberries on it. And I'm like, I need wrestling gear like that.
Right.
And I asked No Gimmicks Gear to make it for me. And she does a lot of the gimmicks for NXT and AEW.
Right.
So she's like, no one's ever asked me to make anything like this before. And she was so excited. She put bees on it.
Right.
Because bees are one of the main pollinators of strawberries.
Yeah.
Leo, I wore this thing to a campground show for the RWA for T Phoenix. These kids were all over me. Hey, fruit man. Hey. Hey, strawberry man, where you going? You're a big cheater, melonhead. We saw you cheat. And I'm like, this is gold.
Nice.
This is absolute gold. These kids were all over me. And all I had to do was put strawberries on my outfit.
With bees.
Bees, strawberries and bees. Leo,
knew?
it worked.
Right?
It worked.
Listen, I went camping a lot when I was a kid, with my cousins and all that. Mm-hmm. And there was never a wrestling show at any campground I went to. What a bummer.
Right, but
that's awesome.
But that's like, I gotta say, if they have the rec center for it, because the one we were at, I forget where it was in Rhode Island, but outside the rec center, they actually had outdoor bleachers, the cement bleachers.
Yep.
And I'm like, this is perfect. Like, bleachers are the best.
Yeah.
Bleachers are the best for wrestling.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't have to break them down or anything.
Exactly.
All right. What inspires you to continue to wrestle? I got to say, he's got a lot of questions, but Dustin's got some good ones.
I never feel like I'm done. Okay. I think a lot of the guys that you have on here, they're probably more from a athletic background. I've always been an artist. Like, wrestling has never been...
Right.
Wrestling has never been an athletic endeavor to me. It's more always been a spectacle, like an art form. I think that one of my favorite ways to put it is it's a morality play. It's that real life convergence of superheroes.
Right.
And like, where do you see that?
Yeah.
Where do you get to go see that? Like the movie screen? Yeah, well, that's about it.
Right.
But when you really want that larger than life, like I love following I love following wrestling just for the graphics.
Yep.
Like I feel like I can see something and just put together a match in my head and get that much more excited for it.
Right.
But no, I have to say, anytime that I come up with something where I feel like, hey, I haven't seen this before, I want to try it out.
Right.
I want to get in there. And this is going to sound completely ridiculous, but there's something about, I have this very pointed memory of one of my trainings with Jeff Costa, where he just grabs me around the neck and he's just yelling at me and yelling at me and yelling at me. I'm going, dude, I cannot stand you. I cannot frickin' stand you. I can't stand you. I can't stand you. I can't stand you. And then I get to that point, Leo. I get to that point where I break his arms and for like 5 or 6 minutes, we just start wrestling.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not one of these things where we were in the back, we're like, okay, we're gonna do this, then we're gonna do that.
Right.
Then you're gonna flip over me and you're gonna come back with a spin kick, but I'm gonna duck. We just started wrestling.
Right.
And it was this incredible feeling, because like there's no talking, you're just feeling everything.
Yeah.
And I think it's just one of those things that when it clicks for you, it's incredible.
Now, were you calling it or was Jeff calling?
No one was calling it.
You were just doing it.
No, we were just doing it. And like we were getting up, there's a headlock, there's a whip off the ropes, but everything was being felt.
Right.
And it's just one of those, it's something again that I managed to do one time in a tag team match with Doug Summers.
Right.
Where, and I can't stand Doug Summers, but this is the show where
not many times people really blast somebody, so all right.
Can't stand Doug Summers. But to his credit, I gave him a slam during a tag team match. I set up for the earthquake splash a little too slowly, hit the ropes, came off. He knew to sit up.
Yeah.
He knew it was time to come fire back. We didn't have to talk about it. So if I never say another nice thing about Doug Summers, there's a nice thing about Doug Summers.
There you go. There you go. All right. Last one from Dustin. When you retired, did you feel any sort of regret? Do you think that was it for you?
At the time, I did.
Right.
At the time that I retired.
You wouldn't have done that if you did really think. If you thought, if you...
No, but one of the things that I got out of that retirement was I did get the match featured on Matt Cardona's podcast.
Okay.
Vlog. I don't know. I don't follow it. But I was on there. And there were people who I never met asking for Deathmatch Tony action figures.
Nice.
Because for my retirement match, I went as I was Deathmatch Tony.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool that people you've never met want your doll.
Yeah.
But No, I don't think I would have done it the same way because as I'm looking back on it, and we're going to get into it in just a little bit, it's not what I wanted my retirement to be.
Right.
And like I'm going to mention when we get to it, I was in a very difficult place. So that retirement was a little rushed, which is why I came back eventually.
Right.
Just this past summer at the Peabody Black Box Theater. I think that wrestlers retiring is never something that actually happens.
No, yeah.
You always stick around and you always want to do just one more or but no, that didn't feel like a retirement to me. But that's the emotional state I was in at the time.
Yeah.
I don't think I necessarily wanted to retire, but because of everything going on, I felt that pull, get out of wrestling, get away from wrestling. You don't want to be in wrestling right now because of what's in your past.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Okay. Kenny Nessel, Adam's brother, wants to know, Christie's or Tripoli's?
Always Christie's.
Really?
Always Christie's.
Okay.
I do enjoy the fluffy bakery pizza.
Yep.
But not Tripoli.
All right.
Not
All right. Jerry Lane, another one about these matches you've had. Have you recovered from the embarrassment of losing to Delilah Hayden? A friend of the show, by the way, just so you know.
I will never be embarrassed that I lost to Delilah Hayden because Delilah Hayden goes out there and lays it all on the line.
Yep.
And for those of you who aren't in the know, Delilah Hayden hits like a Mack truck. The very first time I wrestled Delilah Hayden, I had matching goose eggs on either side of my head. But I was actually watching back one of my matches with Delilah Hayden not too long ago, and she's very good.
Yeah, she is.
She was everywhere that she needed to be in that match that we had. And even though it was that match where I sent myself to the hospital because...
oh, yes. Yeah. You hit your head.
Yep, I hit my head very hard.
Yeah.
8 stitches.
Yeah.
But, you know, every time I
need...
for effort. You know, and let's not just downplay the fact that Delilah Hayden is fantastic in the ring.
Yep.
But every time I need to go to the hospital, guess who's like, I'm going with you?
Well, that's because she's a sweetheart.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, who wants to wait in an emergency room with some dude who knocked himself bloody?
She does. She really does. And she means it, too, when she's sitting there telling you that she cares.
Yeah, yeah. And it was, you know, like, I'll say this. If there are 2 people, okay, let's make it 3. No, let's make it 4.
Okay.
If there's 4 people I had to wrestle on a continuous basis for the rest of my life, once a week, it would be Delilah Hayden, Dick Lane, Joey Warner, and the #1 greatest wrestler to ever come out of New England, Steven the Turtle Weiner.
Nice. I love Turtle's coming back on in November.
Every time Steve and I get in the ring, it is magic because Steve believes. You know, he just believes in wrestling. And I think at the end of the day, that's all any of us ever want, is we want to sit there and we want to watch and we want to be like, that guy believes in everything he's doing.
And I think he just turned 40 the other day.
Oh, yeah.
The Turtle. So happy belated birthday, Steve. He's coming back on again soon.
Happy birthday, Steve. I'll be watching that episode.
Nice. Great guy. All right, Adam Constantine. Through your long and storied career as a wrestler, have you ever been justifiably put in a position you would have rather not been in? I think that he's like really has a specific thing he wants you to say.
So I used to work at the same call center that Todd Graham worked at.
Yeah.
He actually helped me get the job there. And my boss had told me that I wasn't being professional enough on the phone. So I ripped a line from a Macho Man Randy Savage promo.
Oh, no.
Where he had to defend the Intercontinental Championship against Tito Santana. And he was unjustifiably in a position that he'd rather not be in. So as I was in tech support, every time someone would call in with a complaint, they would say, oh, I can't access my ebooks. And I would be like, yes, I understand that you're unjustifiably in a position that you'd rather not be in. and I started keeping a checkmark list. I got up to 52, and then my manager called me in the office because they listen to all the phone calls, and she's like, I'm going to have to unjustifiably put you in a position that you'd rather not be in and ask you to stop.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, that's where that's coming from.
50-something. That's pretty good.
I got there.
Excellent. All right, and he has a follow-up. How did you recover from such incident?
Well, I drank a big glass of Ovaltine.
All right. Love Ovaltine.
Boiled some broccoli, had some hard-boiled eggs, went for a 100-mile run, and everything was better in the long run.
All right. So now we got Versace Stoner, and he's got a few. And I think he knows who you're going to say on this. Mm-hmm. Ask him who his greatest fan is.
Probably Leo Connors.
Versace! Ha ha ha! It's me! It's been me all along! It's been me all along! Ha ha ha!
Oh, gosh.
All right. He has a follow-up. Is he May McCheese? And I'm just gonna say this. I don't think you are.
Look, the amount of brain power that was necessary to pull off Mayor McCheese is something that I am absolutely capable of. You know, I just want to go on record here as for saying that I could have been Mayor McCheese. And that's all there is to it.
All right. How was wrestling John Cena?
Wrestling John Cena was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Never a more professional guy you'll ever meet in your life.
That was at that You Can't See Me show.
Yeah. That was at the You Can't See Me show. You know, it's kind of hard to get a hold of him, but he's very polite, very respectful. I mean, granted.
Which is true. I mean, he is the king of the Make-A-Wish. Honestly, and that's no joke.
Right. No, and before you dwell on that serious matter, which is very important that he's done that, he's talking about the time that I wrestled a blow-up bop bag with John Cena.
Nice.
But I put it over like it was the real John Cena.
Nice. Well, Kenny Omega wrestled a 9-year-old girl.
He did indeed.
I think he wrestled the blow-up doll.
Oh, yeah.
And those close moves really meant something to him, I would imagine, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, wrestling's weird, Leo.
Yes. All right. He wants to know, Versace Stoner at least does, how is it being the greatest Granite State champion?
There's a lot of names on that list of Granite State champion.
Yeah.
There's a lot of names on that list, from Dave Barron to Johnny Vegas to Shane Sharp to Stephen Marriott to Tommy Mack.
Yeah.
All guys you've had on the show.
Yes.
All
almost
A-listers.
all of them.
All A-listers. But have you heard from Tommy Mack in a while?
No, not in a couple of years.
Oh, okay.
Actually. I haven't even seen him being active on Facebook at all.
Oh, okay.
So that's where I would see him most of the time.
I don't think he'd be on Facebook these days anyways.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, maybe you could fill me in off here.
Yeah. It feels great to be one of the Granite State champions that is definitely not taken for granted.
Well, you were the longest reigning.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been well over a decade.
Wow.
Well over a decade.
That's incredible. And when will you face Masha Slamovich? Is it Masha or Masha?
Masha.
I was going to say, he called her Masha.
Probably never.
Okay.
Probably never.
So probably a good point. I would want to wrestle a man. She'd kick that crap out of me.
No, and I think it's one of those things too in wrestling where you're always looking for me training with Masha.
Yeah.
And let me be completely honest. It's always been a business relationship. She's always given me feedback for my matches that I have financially compensated for her for.
Yep.
Because I look up to her as a professional.
She's tough, too.
She's tough. She's well-traveled.
Yeah.
You know, you wouldn't mess with her in a dark alley.
No, hell
but at
no.
the same time, you see how dedicated she is.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one of the things that we need to remember, guys like me who move forward, is to look back and see that part of the thing that keeps me interested in wrestling is seeing that there are more people coming up in it. And there are more people who are excited in it. But there's also people who aren't going the direct WWE route.
Yep.
You know, like we have one of the coolest things I think coming out of New England right now. I don't know if anyone's talking about it in this way, but the girls who were going to Germany, Ava going to Germany, Delmy going to Germany, the kids who went to England from Chaotic,
Right.
Rip Bison and Perry Von Vicious.
Just making it over in Japan.
Yeah, and I think
AG winning tag team gold last night or yesterday morning.
Do you know what that makes our community?
Right.
International sports ambassadors.
Absolutely.
That's incredible, Leo. That's something to get excited about.
Absolutely.
Like the lower third right now on this program is calling me Tony Ciruolo pro wrestler, but it might as well say Tony Ciruolo giant frickin' mark. Right? Because that's what I am.
Yep.
That's why I love this so much.
There's nothing wrong with it. Everybody is.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's if you're not going to come on here and be excited about wrestling,
right?
If you're going to come on here and play it cool, like when I did the New England Fan Fest, and it's like,
oh yeah, you just were there. I wasn't there.
I know you.
I had a table too, and
but the thing was, it's like, whenever I would go to meet a wrestler, I understand you got to play it cool. Like, I mean, you got to, if you're going to go meet Scott Steiner or Ric Flair, they're going to be like cool or whatever, you know. But my thing is, like, when I did New England Fan Fest, I'm like, you want to come meet Tony Spencer? I'm going to be Tony Spencer. I had my singlet on, I had my outfit on, and I had, you know, the feedback. I was like, well, you know, you were like the biggest clown of the whole weekend. Like, no one took you seriously. I'm like, I didn't ask anybody to take me seriously.
Exactly.
I paid Joseph Bruin $100 for a table, and if I want to go make an idiot out of myself,
there you go.
That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
My sister came with me.
That's awesome.
And we had the most fun time. You know, we went out to dinner with an old friend, and we had such a blast. And I was like, watch me, because this is going to be an exercise in character development.
Right.
And I feel bad for my sister because I had her make me a price list. I think I made $14 that I immediately spent at Pat UFO's table on Pat Dillon's table with the old wrestling VHSs.
Oh, you bought VHS tapes.
I didn't even bring home any money.
Do you still have a VCR?
Yes, I do.
I was gonna say, because I got a combo as a DVD VCR.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Angus Amadi. Do you know who that is?
Yes.
Okay. Because he says, my brother, long time, this is the executioner. Mm-hmm. All right. So he really was the executioner?
So this is a gentleman who I actually got to meet, and he is from Nigeria. So I've been making friends with a lot of different African wrestlers, and I'll tell you how this guy messaged me. So I had just shared a couple of different female wrestlers in my Facebook story.
Yeah.
And this guy just messaged me. He's like, hello, beautiful. How are you? I'm like, well, that's not me. And then I sent him all of my promo shots. He's like, oh, brother, you are a fighter. I'm like, yes, brother, I am a fighter.
That's hilarious.
But they have these incredible shows.
Yeah.
And like the whole friggin' village gathers around, and he comes to the ring. This guy's like in his 40s. They work out in what looks like a dungeon. But it's just phenomenal, the dedication they have to this wrestling and to this craft. So, what was his question?
His question was, no, he didn't have one. My brother, long time, this is the executioner.
Hey, the executioner, you are a respectable man. You are a proud man. I'm happy you commented here.
Now, there's a guy, Prince Edie or something like that from Nigeria. That was a big wrestler and all that. And he would fly like Haku in and wrestle him.
Really?
Yeah, and then he found out Haku could beat the crap out of him, and he stopped booking guys like Haku. No lie, true story. All right, so Maverick Wild said, am I ever getting my robe back?
No.
Okay.
No, it's going to be in my closet. I'm going to look at it every day.
Yeah.
It's going to be one of those things that stays with me.
Yeah, you're just going to keep it.
Yeah.
Hey, I respect that. Sorry, Mav.
Yeah. How many years did you keep my boots, Mav? So, yeah.
All right. Well, listen, this is a perfect segue. Episode 307, I had Mav on here, and he talked a little bit about mental health. You had hit me up and said you really wanted to talk about something. So here it is, man. The floor's all yours, my friend.
When I was really young, my father got very sick. he had his heart started the process of a heart attack, but it didn't quite finish. They got him to the hospital in time, but I was only 7 when that happened,
Right.
and it had a real impact on me, to the point where I kind of put myself in the background of a lot of things. It was hard for me to really come into my own, and I had a nervous breakdown when I was 14 years old, my freshman year in high school. And of course, I was never one of those kids who spent a lot of time outside my house. I didn't really do sleepovers or things like that. So, you know, if we did vacations, you know, and this was a complete, this didn't even dawn on me until one of my cousins said it to me when we were talking on the phone the other day. She's like, "Did you ever go on vacation with anyone else?" She's like, "Did you join people for their vacations?" I'm like, "Is that a thing people do?" She's like, "Yes, that's a thing people do."
Right.
I'm like, "Oh." So that made my hospital stay for my nervous breakdown even more jarring.
Right.
And I know Mav talked about the experience a little bit, and I've said this to him and I want to say it again, but it's until he sat here with you
Right.
and said, they bring you in, they take your shoelaces, you don't get a razor, you don't get a belt. And the other thing he didn't mention is someone's there when you shower.
Yeah.
Now they're not like creepy peeping
Right.
on you, but there's someone, you're going into a shower stall and someone's there because there might be a potential for somebody to hurt themselves.
Right.
And the thing was, you know, Leo, no one said to me at that time, "Is there anything that you need to talk about?" Like, you know, and I don't think at that time I was the right age to say,
Right.
"Hey, like I'm having some real nervous issues. Like I'm having a nervous breakdown thinking about when is my father going to die."
Right.
And it's funny because I know there's so many people who've met me through wrestling, and I've kind of come off strange to them, or there's certain social etiquette things that I don't quite follow. And that's really because, you know, again, it's something I didn't realize until I said it out loud to someone. After my nervous breakdown, I had to rebuild myself.
Right.
And it was one of those things where, Leo, when somebody takes you to the hospital, your number one fear is you're going to go back.
Right.
And there's going to be something that's going to trigger that event that brings you back.
Right.
And it's a powerless feeling. And I just, you know, but I watched my friend who trained me how to do the thing that I love sit here and talk to you about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a minute, that's the one thing I've never done. Because I lost an aunt at the beginning of the summer, and it was my dad's sister. And that was the beginning of the July. And it just happened to coincide with Mav's journey.
Yep.
And those two things together, that trainer, best friend, wrestling figure,
Right.
and then my dad's sister crashed together. I had just come off a rough month where I had stopped taking my meds. And, you know, there was just always this, wrestling has been this incredible way for me to heal.
Right.
And over the summer, as I was getting more and more upset, I started to reach out to different wrestling people. And that included Mav, and that included Joe Puffer, Todd Graham, you know, my childhood best friend, Adam Nessel, Dustin Healy, and just these people were able to come back to me with their own experiences and their own wisdom. And I've been best friends with Adam since we were 7 years old.
Wow.
And he was able to say, for me to tell him some of these things, he's like, wow, this makes a lot more sense. Because Leo, when I was heavily medicated, I was a completely different person.
Right.
And it's one of those things you really have to wean yourself off of it. It completely changes your brain chemistry. And and there's something else that's been really difficult for me to talk about, but I'm comfortable enough here with you now in this moment 20 years later to tell you that, when I was 18 years old, I was molested by a boss at my work in a sexual way. And, as I've gotten to be more open about it and talk about it, I've found that there's friends of mine who've gone through the exact same thing.
Right.
And one of the things about that kind of abuse is that it isolates you. It makes you feel alone, like it's not happening to anybody else.
Right.
And of course, the other thing going on with me too is I had that background of mental health. I had that idea that if I start talking, if I start saying too much, then I'm gonna go back to the hospital.
Right.
And again, that's a powerless feeling.
Yeah.
But then I thought to myself, I went out this summer and I got myself a new therapist. And he said to me, he's like, one of the things I do is I help people with trauma.
Yeah.
And at the end of the appointment, we had trauma. I don't have any trauma. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, you do.
And the thing is that he and I have actually come to the conclusion that based on everything with my father, having the anxiety issues over my father passing, having the forced hospitalization when I was 14 but I've since come to work at a high school.
Yeah.
I'm a janitor. And at the very beginning of this year, we all had to go to a suicide training.
Yep.
But I discovered that when kids are pulled out of the high school and put into hospitalization programs, there is an immediate attention given to reintegrating those kids, to not taking them out.
Right.
And I thought to myself, I am so glad I went to this training.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I came here because now I know that there are people in those types of programs that want to help high school kids.
Absolutely.
Not feel alienated, not feel like their mental health is something for them to be ashamed of.
Right.
And maybe there was that movement when I was 14 and I wasn't paying attention to it. I don't think there was, but there's so much more focus on it now.
Right.
And I really needed to give myself that forum to talk about it and to talk about it with someone I was comfortable with, like you, because wrestling, and I keep using the word powerless because there's so much powerlessness associated with a forced hospitalization or an environment where you're being sexually taken advantage of. And wrestling helped me get my power back.
Right.
Wrestling helped me not be ashamed of my body. And wrestling it's an intimate connection with another person.
Right.
And it's funny because I reread all my old messages to people because sometimes I'll reveal myself more in conversation than I will in my own head.
Yeah.
And I remember telling one of my friends not too long ago, oh, I block out the traumatic events of my life. And I'm like, and when I said it, it was a joke, but I'm like,
no, but you really do.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And
I think most people do. Right? Don't you? I mean,
right?
Not many people come and sit and talk to you all like Mav did.
Right.
Honestly, that takes a lot of guts.
And the thing that opened it up was, this is not normal.
Right.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's not a normal, I know I've said it twice before, but until he sat in this chair and said, this is what you go through when they put you up those places, I was like, oh, that's right. This is not like riding a bike or skinning your knee.
Yeah, no.
This is not something everybody does.
Yeah, no. And you ain't going anywhere once you get in there until the time is up.
Exactly.
Which is a good thing, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It really is.
And I think about how lucky I was because I was probably at But the thing is, I've never seen my mental health as something that I can move past.
Right.
And now I'm doing this trauma work with the therapist, and we're really going back and unpacking some things.
Yep.
And Leo, sometimes lately I found myself feeling guilty because I'm just happy for no reason. And then I'm just like, oh, wait a minute. This is how people feel.
Yeah.
This is how people feel sometimes.
Yep.
Just walking down the street and all of a sudden, hey, it's kind of nice today.
Yeah.
But when you're impacted by this, and my abuse, his name is Woody McCarthy.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, I've always had trouble. I saw him, and this isn't an invitation for anyone to attack him.
Right.
But what brought this all to light was, you'll remember a couple years ago on Twitter with the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
And people were getting called out, and there were friends of mine that got called out.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not here to name those names.
Yeah.
But I remember reading about some of the things that my friends were doing, and I'm like, no, wait a minute, no. Where was I? This sounds like a familiar environment. Why wasn't I there?
Right.
Why wasn't my radar up? Why wasn't I stepping in? And I've done it since then. We talk about the cosplay that I like to do. And I remember I was at the Heinz Convention Center. We were in the hallway, and people will go out to the hallway to take their pictures. And there was a girl in the hallway who was dressed as Queen Mera from Aquaman.
Yep.
So that was a skin-tight green spandex suit. And there were guys going by just creepily taking pictures. Leo,
of course.
you've never seen me angry.
Right.
Right? No one has ever seen me angry. I was angry.
I don't blame you.
Leo, I was grabbing guys,
Yep.
taking their phones and deleting pictures.
Nice.
Because this triggered an uncomfortable place for me.
Yeah. Yep.
And the whole issue of what happened with my retirement, directly relates to the Johnny Vegas incident.
Right.
And I can't sit here and tell you one way or another what Johnny Vegas did.
Right.
I'm not here to talk about that.
Yep.
But I do think that coming from my own experience, I remember sitting there on the Twitter and going scrolling and reading these things, being like, well, what about those of us that can't talk about it?
Right.
And unfortunately, that was kind of like a flag that I wore to be proud. Oh, look at how strong I am. This happened to me, but I can't talk about it. And then the tables turn, and my life has been getting so much better because I can talk about it.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, Leo, this happened to me when I was 18 years old.
And you would never expect that to happen to an 18-year-old person.
No, you wouldn't.
Right.
But then I noticed that this guy who I worked for, now he was in charge of a kitchen at an old folks home, and he would hire other attractive guys to work in the kitchen.
Right.
And as I thought about it and was able to process it more, I'm like, wait a minute, I wasn't the only one.
Right.
And and it was funny, not too long ago, I was working with somebody who grew up in Southie and obviously had a similar situation happen with a Catholic priest. And he said something to me that stuck with me. He's like, they always know who to pick on.
Yep. They seem to. They seem to know.
Yeah.
It's like they got radar.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is that while I can't sit here and tell you one way or another, if what Johnny Vegas did or who he did it to, that was something that led me to this path, to actually digging this up.
Yeah.
That was the whole reason for my retirement match last summer.
Right.
And like I said, Todd Graham, he begged me. He said, reconsider this. Think about this. Is this really what you want to do? Because he knew that there was something else going on.
Yeah.
And there was. And it was all of these 20 years of feelings. And the worst part is that when all of this was happening for me, is there was a flip-flop of the stereotype. When I was being abused, I really wanted to go to a Catholic priest. But my priest, who had been my friend for years, know why we were friends? Wrestling. But he had been my friend for years. I wanted to go to him. He was one of the guys I could go to.
Right.
And he got accused. Turns out, the person who accused him, mental health issues.
Okay.
So everything was,
that's good.
No one stepped forward. He fought the charges, but at the same time, he told me, when I fought the charges and I won, I said, okay, well, I want to go out. I want to get my name cleared. I want to go after these people.
Right.
And the lawyer's like, no one is going to touch that case.
Right.
So I think it's important to remember that while there are guys out there, people out there who do these things,
Yep.
if you are not guilty, then that doesn't matter.
Right.
Once you've been found guilty by a jury of your peers, you are thrown out because Leo,
Oh, yeah.
I've had some weird relationships. I have had some weird relationships with women.
Yeah.
And weird relationships with other men. And that is something that as I'm going back to, and luckily I've been able to maintain these friendships over many
Right.
years, but I've done some weird stuff. I've had some weird ideas going on up
Right.
in my head. And I really just wanted to come to you in this public forum because I finally feel like I have a voice to express
Yep.
myself. There hasn't been a lot, I feel like, other than myself and Mav, I don't know if anyone else has come on to talk about this.
No one.
But the number one thing that I want to get the
Well,
point.
Mav and Delilah, when we did the Me Too thing, that was
Right.
it, though. And Delilah said some things about herself.
Right, and how long ago was that?
That was a while, over a
Right.
year ago, way
And
over a year ago.
Here's the disservice. Here's the disservice when it comes to, from what I see about finding predators
Yep.
in wrestling, is we all come together,
Yep.
we all point our fingers, and then we go home to our individual fiefdoms, and nothing is done.
Right.
Now, granted, I'm not talking that there needs to be this huge alliance between everyone in New England, but in the same way that we need to keep these people out,
Yep.
that they need to be excluded,
Right.
because this shouldn't be inclusionary when it comes to things like that.
Right.
There needs to be a space for people to heal.
Yes.
And I honestly, I kept thinking to myself, like I said, the therapist I'm seeing now, he does a lot of work with trauma.
Yep.
I'm talking like fire chief captains and people who see like stuff.
Right.
But he's told me that what it boils down to is it can boil down to things that are hidden.
Yep.
Trauma that comes from your childhood.
Right.
And I just think that this is a specific kind of trauma.
Right.
Because there are guys who, dude, Leo, guys do this for free. Let's be fair. The guys put up a ring in their backyard and they do it for free.
Absolutely.
They do it for absolutely no reason at all.
And plenty of people in New England.
But like, I desperately want to come on here and tell you that I was organizing some kind of seminar
Yeah.
where everybody could come and there would be a day of healing where people could talk about the stuff that happened to them,
Right.
talk about the stuff that didn't need to happen that did. But I think that that's something that is gonna have to be addressed on a level that's far ahead of mine.
Right.
But I want to put it out there because Leo, all of this stuff that I've said to you tonight, the first time I was on this show 5 years ago, 10 years, I never could have said it.
Right.
Or I would have said it in a way that doesn't make sense.
Right.
I've watched myself now back on video and seen the way that I put my thoughts together and the way that my brain works and know that it's all come to this point. Because what I want to say going forward from this is how much wrestling has given me.
Yeah.
Because
Given you and so many other people.
Right.
So many. You know what I mean? It's a given sport.
and it's almost this disservice to call it the business.
Right.
Right?
I hear ya.
The other thing that bothers me is the marks. I'm like, if they're not here, we look stupid.
Yeah, yeah. And who are some of the biggest marks? They might be in the ring. And that's not a bad thing.
They might be sitting down at Nashua Community Access
Yes,
to
of
talk about some
course.
really serious
Exactly.
things.
Exactly.
But I'll tell you, I had this eye-opening experience where all the stuff I told you,
Yep.
I let loose on Big Scott Guerin one night.
Nice.
And I'm like, dude, all this stuff happened to me. I'm like, stuff happened to me. I wasn't too specific about it. I'm like, can I come down and talk to you? So one Saturday, I drove over to Nepois, and I sat across from him the same way I'm sitting across from you, and I told him everything.
Wow.
And it was the first time I'd ever done that with someone who I felt like if he had been there,
Yeah.
because Big Scott has a background working in the culinary
Right.
side of things.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
like, if he had been there, he would have helped me beat this guy up.
Right.
And I realized that that's the thing, is that when I got into Nashua
Yeah.
in front row, I was like, you gotta understand, these guys were my heroes.
Yeah.
Like Maverick Wild
hear you.
and Sonny Goodspeed and Christian Angers and even Johnny Vegas. Like even because Johnny Vegas gave me that
Captain
character.
USA.
Captain USA.
Yeah. I mean,
but they
know.
were all characters.
Right.
And there's this great Maverick Wild story that I haven't shared until right now. I kept meaning to message him about, but you know what? I'm going to save it for this. We had a guy come to the gym for training, and Maverick pulled him aside to talk turkey. You know, these are the dues. This is what you need to pay. And he's like, is there anything that we should know about? Because let's be fair, like we talked about, wrestling doesn't attract the most savory characters. Right. And he told Maverick, well, I'm on a couple of lists for this, that, and the other things. You get out of here. You get out of here right now.
Right.
And after he threw that guy out, he came out to where we were getting dressed. He's like, if any of you ever see that guy come back here, you pick up that 45-pound plate and you throw it at his head.
Wow.
And that's one of those things, Leo, where it's one of those things that I have never shared with too many people, but it was one of those things when you have been through abuse and someone who you look up to and respect. And again, it's another one of those things where this is a physical bond as well as an emotional bond, to where the point where I call Mav up on the phone, I don't know what to say to him. But if we get in the ring, I know I want to punch him in the head.
Right.
But a guy who I looked up to and trained me and showed me all these things that were important to me, when your role model comes out and says, this guy is a prevert.
Right.
And if he ever comes back here,
you hurt him.
You hurt him. Right?
Yeah.
But that's not the point I want to get across, you know?
I know.
It's just this, wrestling is just this incredible community.
It is.
And there's so many people around it, and there's so many people I've been able to talk to, like Brett Ryan Gosselin. I just sent him a message.
Sweet victory.
I just sent him a message not too long ago talking about the pain I felt of my dad's passing, but realizing that it was a way to move on to the next thing.
Right, and he had been through it.
Yeah, he'd been through the same thing. And you know what? He heart reacts to the message. He said, thank you so much, Tony. I needed to read this weekend. And like, how cool is that?
He's a good kid.
How cool is that, though?
And he's doing great things, getting booked all over the place.
Right? Like, how many of our guys now are out in Major League Wrestling? That's going to be a New England promotion before you know it. That's amazing.
It is amazing.
That's incredible. Leo, we should start going to shows together.
We should?
We should.
I actually don't go to enough, to be honest with you, so maybe we should. Yeah. I really, and how you said that, like, you know, with you and Mav, if there's anybody out there that wants to talk, you can come here on this show, no judgments, I'll listen, whatever you need to say.
Yeah.
You know, because that's what this is about. Like you said, it's a community. I'm not going to lie to you. Since before episode 300, at least once a week, I think I stopped doing this. Mm-hmm. At least once a week. But I'm lucky enough to think of the people that have hit me up every time I've said it out loud. The people that have hit me up privately and said, please don't. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And I know for a fact that if I stopped, I would kick myself in the ass. That's why I'm not gonna. But I continue every week. I say the same thing. I'm like, do I want to keep doing this? But I do want to do it, and it's reasons for this. It's like this, for you, for being here for you, for being here for Mav, for being here for me even sometimes. Right. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. And I think if there's anything that needs to be said, talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Always talk to somebody.
100%.
And realize that just because bad things happen, it doesn't mean that you're bad.
Right.
And that's the big takeaway that I've been, like, my cousin said it to me not too long ago, where she's like, my sister said to me, our mother dying was bad. And then I'm like, holy crap. All this stuff that happened to me was bad. Right. But that doesn't make me bad.
No,
and it explains a lot about the cuckoo bananas world that's operating up here.
Yeah.
You know? And it's nice to know that there's cuckoo bananas people who are running cuckoo bananas public access shows where we can all be cuckoo bananas together.
Yeah. And it's great. And it's great to be. I mean, again, I have a platform and I've used this a few times. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I was more mad than Sonny was mad when all that stuff went down. I mean, honestly. Yeah. You know? Because if you're my friend, I back you. How many times have I had Derek Simonetti on? Right. Honestly. Why? Because I like the kid. Right. He's a good dude. Right. And I'd have him on as many times as he'd want. I don't care if people say things like, again. hey, it is what it is. You know what I mean? He's a good dude, a good guest.
And, I just want to put this out there, too.
Yeah.
If there's anyone in wrestling, not in wrestling, just watching this program, you feel like something's happened to you in your past, you want to talk about it, you want to message me, please do. Please do. And if you think that coming on to Leo is something that's going to help you heal your trauma, because it's taken me years to have a public forum to talk like this. Right. This is the first time where my voice has come out, where I'm not doing a bit. I took away so much from TV growing up that I feel like going into every situation has to be a bit. Right. I have to tell a joke. Well, that's not always the case, And Leo, I just want to thank you so much, because this has been an important part of my journey to do this here with you. And Leo, I want to give you a hug on air.
Right there,
I want to give you a hug.
Right there, brother. Right there, man. Like I said, I'm glad I have this forum, this platform for you to talk, and for Mav and for anybody else that needs it. Do you have anything you want to plug? You got any? When's Todd Graham's next show?
Todd Graham has a show coming up, I'm sure. Let's say that it's the next Elkmania. Should we have looked this up before we sat down?
Probably, but look it up on Facebook.
He's going to post it in the Ring and All Other Sports. Yeah. There's going to be all the match announcements.
Absolutely. Proving Ground Wrestling.
Yeah.
There was a good show over the weekend. I guess Lucky Pro ran a good show.
Did they?
Yep. And Vicious Vern Vicalo is back.
I saw
in
that.
Pro wrestling. Congratulations, Vern. Maybe I'll have to bring you back. It's been quite a while. It's been about 5 years since you've been in the studio.
Vern, let's see you at the Proving Ground, huh?
Yeah. Oh, he's a great guy, man.
Oh, yeah.
Great talent.
You ever have Stephen Lust on here?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay. How about the politician?
Oh, yes, I've had the politician on. You better start looking at my playlist, dude.
I gotta start watching shows that I'm not on.
Dude, honestly, the politician. I'm a contributor to his campaign. I love the guy. Tony, again, man, thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it.
Guys, we're out. Peace. Hi, guys. I hope you're enjoying the show. Listen, I could use a little help to grow my YouTube channel. So if you could please like, share, and subscribe. That's most importantly, subscribe. Send me a direct message, and I'll give you a shout out here on the show. My YouTube channel is real simple. It's just my name, Leo Connors. Thanks in advance. Peace.